Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Crone Knows. It is a group panel talking about the embodiment of the Crone archetype in deathwork and in society at large. I am Phoenix, and I'll be the facilitator today. I do want to invite everyone to hold questions if you can until the end, or utilize the chat button, and I'll be sure to refer to them toward the end of the meeting or when it's appropriate to interject, okay? Alrighty, so let's get into the work. I'd like to introduce our panelists. We've got a really, really amazing group of women joining us today. So we have Karen Carlisi. Dr. Karen Carlisi is a scholar, a professor of the English language studies at Pasadena City College, a member of the Santa Monica Threshold Choir, and a death doula entrepreneur of Death Doula Karen. Yay! You are though, right?
Oh,
Um,
honor.
it's always fun to have other people introduce you, right?
Mm.
And next we have Corinne Dempsey. Dr. Dempsey is a professor and chair of the Religious Studies Department at Nazareth University, a renowned author. Her latest work, A View from Life's Edge, Discovering What Really Matters with Older Women Across the Globe, Global Perspectives on Aging, was published in October of 2025. I'll be posting the links for everyone so everyone can get in touch with these amazing women after the panel. Next, we have Rebecca Dove Sieling, who is also a member of the Santa Monica Threshold Choir. She is an energetic healing practitioner and creator and host of the Awakening Women's Wisdom podcast. Welcome, welcome, Rebecca. And then last but not least, we have the amazing Susan Kacvinsky,
Mm.
who is also another member of BBDC, a novelist and the author of Modern Mythology, in which she examines the intersections of myth, politics, and history through personal and collective narratives. Yay. All right. Everyone satisfied? We're going to get ready to get
Mhm.
into it.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh man, I'm so excited to get into the stuff. Alrighty, so the crone. What is the crone? There is a debatable etymology for this term crone. There are some of the New Age pagan camp who say the root word of crone is for crown or corona. The Greek definition or root word of the word of hag, anyway, which is also used interchangeably sometimes with crone, sadly, um, is from the word hagia, meaning holy one, a holy one. However, this term gained popularity in the 14th century of Europe, in which it was an abusive term that was aimed at older women, and it came from the root word carrion or dead flesh. That's terrible, right? So we're here to talk about this. The maiden mother crone triple goddess archetype was popularized by Robert Graves in his 1948 book, The White Goddess. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, who is a renowned psychologist and cultural anthropologist, defines the crone as such. Who is the crone? She is the most dangerous, the most radical, the most revolutionary woman in existence. Whether in fairy tales or consensual reality, the old one goes where she wants to and acts as she wishes. She lives as she chooses, and this is how it should be. And no one can stop her, nor ought they try. This is from The Power of the Crone, Myths and Stories of the Wise Woman Archetype. Marion Woodman, another renowned psychologist, says the crone in a woman is that part of her psyche that is no longer identified with any relationship nor confined by any bond. She infuses an intrinsic sense of self-worth, of autonomy into the role of virgin and mother, and gives the woman strength to stand to her own creative experience. And that is from Dancing in the Flames, The Dark Goddess, and the Transformation of Consciousness. So now I would like to invite panel members to share their own crone story. And the main questions we hope to address in this part of the meeting is how does the crone or inner wise woman show up in your daily life? And we'd like you to share how you came to meet and embody your crone wise woman.
Mm.
Rebecca, I'd like to invite you to speak first
Well,
on the spot.
on the spot. Uh, I remember, and this was 12 years ago, I remember when I had my 50th birthday and I felt like some kind of joy was unleashed. I felt like I had arrived. I was excited because I had a good bit of life experience behind me, but a lot of the wisdom that I felt like I carried even when I was younger, that there would be some bit of respect because it was coming from somebody who had sort of come of age. I did not have anybody telling me that. It was just some inner sense. So, as you can tell, I'm sure you can all do 50 plus 12, knowing that I'm 62 at this point. And that to me is just a sense that has continued. I find myself in a role of I, leadership. I kind of has I'm leaning away from that only in the sense that I feel it's a role of guidance. And in the work that I do as an energy practitioner, I shaman, Reiki, sound healings, the singing, kinesiology, all of these different things come together. But it's really, to me, it's about supporting women's, well, whoever I'm working with, a lot of it is primarily women, helping them to embrace their emotional and spiritual well being. And that is a process of guiding someone into their own ability to express themselves in a way that feels resonant and comfortable. And to have someone standing in a position who has some years of life experience behind them, some wisdom, some grace, who can see the best in them and help them to take steps toward that. I feel like that really is a role of the crone, because that brings our the wisdom we've gained from life experience, from the things that we've trained in, and we're able to make an alchemy through all of time, through years of experience and tests and trials and challenges and successes, so that we can help other people. We can pass the baton, and then they can carry us as well. And I feel the crone has a role. Again, to me, it's a little bit loose, but in leadership. But I feel that because of those things, like the hag and the dead flesh, we've been carrying that for so long that we need leaders who champion what it is to be a woman past 50 and past 60 and past 70 who brings heart into life. And there's a little bit of leadership there, but I feel ultimately it's about networking, bringing together communities of women to embrace the best of who they are, to bring love and grace into that. So I think that's kind of the way that I see and embrace the idea of being a crone.
Beautiful, Rebecca. Thank you so much for that. I really, really appreciate that. Corinne, you're up next. You ready to chat?
I am, and I'm going to try to keep track of time. So, Phoenix, thank you for all this organization. And if you could just like yell at me if I go too long, that would be really helpful. And I just said earlier before you were able to appear that it's a joy to be brought into all this. So, I have not thought about the crone as an archetype or a thing at all until I was invited by Karen to join you all. So what I have been thinking about I would say patterns, not archetypes so much, but patterns that came to me. So I'm not like applying Crone frameworks so much when I do my ethnography, but I talk to all these women, and the book that you mentioned that I wrote, 91 women over the age of 80 in India, South India, Northern Iceland, Portola Valley, the area where I grew up, in California, Bay Area, and then the nuns here that are Sisters of St. Joseph that are radical, wonderful women. So there are themes, and what has been really fun for me when I was drawn into this is to think about what the crone is as a framework for looking at these themes. So now, after all that, I'm seeing these connections that I think are really interesting, and I was helped very much by Susan's article that Karen sent me because I'm like, what's a crone? I mean, there's so many things out there. I mean, where do you start? And actually, what you had to say, Phoenix, was really helpful, and Rebecca, you too. So I have way more things than I can talk about. I just want to say off the top of my head that this idea of the hag as holy, it's this totally ambivalent power, right? And I think holiness, we tend to dumb it down or whitewash it. And I think oftentimes holiness is a little dangerous. So, I think the hag is really, wow, that's something to really think about. Hey, Gia, I didn't realize, I hadn't known that connection. So oh gosh, it gives me chills so much. So I think the broadest framework that I can, sort of pick up from all this stuff about Crohn's is wisdom. And Susan rightly mentioned that, we normally think, oh, you've lived a lot of years, so you must be wise. And as Susan said in her article, well, not everyone's done the work. But what is, I think, the power behind people who are older and women in particular is that they're close to death. And this is where, their proximity, you use that word, Susan, and I use it too. That changes you. And this is kind of the thesis for my book. The third thing that I think engenders wisdom is the fact that it's embodied, it's implicit. And in other words, in our youth obsessed ableist society, being an old woman is countercultural. So, like it or not, that is what you are. And it's not necessarily something you talk about, it's just who you are as an embodied person. So, I feel like there's so many different ways we can think about how wisdom sort of shows up in the crone thing. So then I looked at the book and I just tried to pick apart the main themes and how that connects to the crone, and I have three of them. And the first is audaciousness. It was blew my mind that unlike so many other places where I've tried times in India and in Iceland and at a Hindu temple here, getting people to tell me their stories or give me their opinions was sometimes hard. But with these older women, they had stuff to tell me. I mean, there was so amazing. No, I mean, the hesitation was so rare. So this was the easiest, most wonderful, joyful project I've ever done because they were ready to tell me what they thought and their stories. And I think that audaciousness is reflective of this kind of marginal place that there is a sense of entitlement that comes that absolutely across cultures I really, really enjoyed. The second of the three themes is disagreeability. Which I think is, again, this is this two-edged or ambivalent kind of powers is being not okay with everything. And this is the countercultural part. And in three ways it came up in these interviews. One was a rejection of religious dualisms, the idea that God's way up in heaven blessing and cursing us. That did not work for a lot of women. They either left religion altogether or they brought God down to earth in the mess of life. And the place of the various places I talked to that didn't need to do that was India. And especially the Dalit women, I spoke to these women who are untouchables. God was with them in their pain. It wasn't about, oh, what did I do wrong? That my life is so horrible. No, if it weren't for God with them in their pain, I don't know how they would have managed. So that's a rejection of this sort of hierarchical dualistic view. Rejection of perfectionism, also something that came up when people told me their stories about the most important things in their lives, about the great loves and victories of their lives, always couched in sorrow or loss. And those victories and beauties are things that we can see all the more clearly when they are surrounded by sorrow. And so it's not about this cookie cutter, beautiful, perfect life. They were not giving me that at all. And I so appreciate that. And it's true. It's true. That's where we can see the beauty. Rejection, finally, the third is rejection of control and despair. And this came out when I asked about life lessons. What'd you learn? What did life teach you? And over and over and over again, it's a two-pronged answer. One, they learned that it doesn't help to have expectations. To give up judgment is really important. Just to give up these things where you're trying and trying. Also, this trust, deep trust that there is this life force, God, humanity, goodness that is runs through us all. They know that. So it's this again, this ambivalence of letting go and knowing something deeply that they can't understand. And then the final of the three is mystical insight. I think this is something Susan mentions. It's comes through in different ways. One is that they were not afraid of death. And this is, again, something Susan brought up. Proximity to death didn't, actually, after a while, it's like you get used to it. So it was exciting. Mystery was exciting. And not knowing actually was okay. And I think in our world of knowing and of division and of absolutes, all of these things are so important and they really fit, I think, with the Crone idea. Just the last thing I want to say is one of my favorite sort of phrases from Rabbi Heschel, Abraham Heschel, I think fits really well what we're talking about here. He talks about people who are spiritual in a way that is embedded in a deeper reality. He refers to it as a higher incomprehension. So I think the Crone has, that is something that should be our goal, to have a higher incomprehension. We don't understand things that are, the more important things are, the less we really understand them. And that should be really okay. And there's a freedom in that, a real freedom in that. So there's my thoughts on Crone stuff, trying to connect.
You did an amazing job.
Thank you.
I'm so enjoying all of this. And I just wanted to bring up the point about what the disagreeability, that was one of the main terms that they utilized to articulate this archetype, is the fact that they are out of convention, out of alignment with all these structural things. And again, I think that is part of the power of the crone in the way that it stepping outside of these systems can allow for, I think, more relevance. Um,
And I didn't do my homework exactly, which is how has it affected me? And I would just say I'm so inspired. I'll just say I'm
oh,
inspired. And I actually retired last May. So it's
oh,
it's a turning point. And yeah, and all of this is
congratulations.
inspiring to me, and so are all of you. So there you go. That's
Oh.
me. Thank you.
Congratulations and well
Thanks.
done in your career. I'm so excited I want to talk to you more about that later on. That sounds amazing. And especially what you're going to do in your time after professional life. Um, I have so Susan and Karen are the last two panels in this particular section, but I specifically wanted to bring illumination to something that Corinne had mentioned and navigating the liminal, these in between material and etheric realms. Karen and I had a huge discussion about this. Karen beautifully positioned it, calling it extraneous, feeling like an extraneous figure at times, but as it applied to death work and life, like what navigating that and holding the sum of your life experience in your daily walk. Like, what might that look like in your life? And so, Susan, I'd like to invite you up next to chat.
All right, thank you. And thank you everybody for all the feedback on my essay. So it's so nice to be read. Let's just say that. My so I've come to understand in my own life that the hag, which I embrace now, is an outgrowth of the crone, which I embraced when I stopped menopause. I've stopped bleeding. And that for a very large portion of my life, I've been mostly asexual. And and thinking that meant there was something wrong with me. and then coming to like in recent years to really come to understand that that our culture is our culture is hypersexual. And that as a result, I might just be normal. It's possible. I embrace my Crondom as a high school teacher through loving children. And I call them children because that's what they are. Even the ones in big black bodies who are 6'5" are children still. And as I went through the Los Angeles Unified School District, I went from teaching AP everything and helping kids get to college and doing all that stuff, and to teaching in continuation high school, where the kids are I used to call it the last chance saloon. It's like after you've fallen through every other crack above you, that's where you land. And loving those children was no different than loving the high achieving children at all. And that's like the whole Crone thing was very grandmotherly as it came through me in embracing those children. Then I retired. And that's when I started stepping into the hag. And the image of the scary old woman who is so spiritually powerful that she's terrifying, that's the image I'm moving toward. And I love what you said, Corinne, about the sacred being dangerous, because the sacred is dangerous. And if you approach it without the proper respect, you can have some serious mental health issues. Like things can happen. And people who approach the sacred or the divine without the proper respect, or thinking like your ego is going to somehow control that, I understand, therefore I own, you can have your legs chopped out from under you for approaching the sacred that way. And I think that's all like serious hag energy, because she does not play. And she does not play with your posturing. How many, well, I don't even know if I want to go here, but I'm going to anyway. How many like mega church leaders and televangelists can you think of off the top of your head who have had their legs chopped out from under them in a public way? So anyway, I'll just leave that. I come to it myself through embracing despair, through embracing the darkness, through silent retreats that don't have rules like sit this way and hold your fingers that way, but it just rules about what you don't do. No talking, obviously. No writing, no reading, no listening to music, no eye contact. And here you are in a container with 60 other people doing the same thing you're doing, and whatever's going to unravel is going to unravel. And in the beginning, it's all your projections. That's what comes up. That's what's there. It's all you can see. And for me, it's anger, it's judgment, it's critical. I don't like the way that person chews. Stuff like that. Furious though, like tornado furious. And then it breaks. It breaks like a fever. And what it breaks into is love. And what that love breaks into for me is joy. And I think at the core for everyone, it's some quality of the divine. So maybe for you, it breaks into beauty. Maybe for you, it breaks into peace. Maybe for you, it breaks into one of the other major qualities, truth. It's all good. But the doorway to it is, for me, has always been despair. And the willingness to go into it knowing that I'm going to go through that cycle. And it isn't going to break until I get to the place where I go, I can't do this, right? Or just helplessness. For me, helplessness is the doorway to despair, or the reverse. I'm not sure. helplessness is the doorway to love. I can't do it. I can't control anything. I can't understand anything. Repeated exposure to that cycle. And that's where it all comes from, is that recognition that I'm never going to understand the mystery. And it is absolutely fruitless to try. But I can let this love pour through me. And in my elder years since retirement, I mean, I guess it's always been about community, because a classroom is a community and a school is a community. And then those kids have families, and they were always part of my community too. But now it's the larger community, the social, political, the culture. That's the community that I'm talking about. And that's the community that I want to hold to account from this place, to hold feet to the fire, to say, we allowed this. We allowed this to happen. But we can't pretend that we're founded on all goodness and light, because look, right? This happened, and this happened, and this happened. So that's the kind of thing. And it's all geared toward creating a better community, a more loving community. So maybe we don't get everything. We just keep working toward loving each other more. And, you know, if you're out there hurting people, I'm going to show you the hag face. You're going to get it. That's the way it is, because it's infuriating. That's me.
It
Beautiful.
sure is.
Thank you. So I know, right? Clock it. I like it. Okay. Last but not least in this section, we're gonna have Karen share your crone story.
Okay, well, I'm going to be that 72-year-old almost in September, audacious, entitled storyteller. um, so just, I was thinking about, how did I get here, as David Burns says. I really resonated with the whole idea that Woodman put out, that the crone is part of my psyche. And it actually infused this intrinsic sense of self-worth and autonomy into the earlier stages of my life, when I was the virgin, so to speak, or mother, because I see those symbolically anyway. So it blew my mind when I started thinking about it, because if I look at my life from the view where I am now, I see how there was some sort of force or some sense of knowing, or just a presence that guided me in my earlier stages. So if I think about my maiden or virgin stage, it was a very dark period in my life, my childhood, my adolescence. I was, in a place where I was, there was a lot of violence, abuse, eating disorder. I really didn't see a future for myself. All I saw was darkness. But then when I look at that period, I also see these definitive moments where this inner crone was already present and guiding me forward to the moment where I am now. So the first thing that I thought of was my great grandmother, Vincenza, who came straight from Sicily. And she actually looked like this cultural caricature of the crone. She was old, she was homely, she had whiskers spiking out of her chin. She was dressed in long black dresses and had an odor that I came, later to identify with the elderly. She had left her country, her home, her culture, her language. She presumably came to the US to have a better life. And she had 7 children. And she was spent. And my sense of her, every time I was in her presence, I just felt this intense sadness and bitterness and feeling of being discarded and feeling, invisible. And I just felt this intense urge to connect with her and bring her into the light. So I would sit with her and ask her about Italy and I would just like yank on her and, teach me Italian. And we developed this language because her English was not very good. So every time I saw her, we would say bella figlia, bella faccia, because she would always say that to me, which means beautiful girl, beautiful face. So she was making me remember that maybe I was beautiful. And every time I was with her, we would exchange those words. But later, of course, then she declined, and I was young. I was, in college, and she was in a nursing home alone, dejected, forgotten. And I visited her as many times as I could. But then at the beginning of grad school, I left for study abroad in Poland, and she died while I was away. So I think that this was my inner crone bringing me to truly see her and to make a connection to my own internal development in a way that I always said, I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to end up with that kind of end, with this lost, forgotten, dejected. It was just like my horror that's always in my mind, that I don't want to be, even though I loved her to death, I didn't want to have that kind of end. And the other piece in that period is that I was in high school. One of my first jobs was I was working in what we call today an assisted living facility. And I was walking up and down the halls with elderly women, listening to their stories repeated again and again because they had dementia. And I was just there with them, listening, feeling, and hearing them. And, again, looking back now, I feel like it was this inner crone, this part of my psyche that took me from that moment. And I can see it all the way forward into my work as a doula today. So, if I go into then the mothering stage, which is sort of this developmental stage where you're a nurturing, producing, growing part of your development. And I got married, I had my son, and I distinctly remember the day that I looked into my infant son's face and I panicked and I froze and I said, I can't do this. And I almost, fell apart, but I went into therapy. I did the work. As Susan says, you do the work. And I did a tremendous amount of work. At that time, I sort of went through a transformation, and as Woodman says, I found the strength to stand on my own creative experience. And in my work life, I started to just explode. I wrote books. I was doing international teacher training seminars, and I also became a healer at that time. I had a student, Valeria from Brazil, who was HIV positive, and she lived with me for a while, and I fed her and did energy work with her and sent her to San Francisco. And she eventually went back to Brazil and wrote a book about her time here and became a leading educator in AIDS education in Brazil. And I was in her book. And it was just this, like, all of a sudden, this like explosion in my life, which I was now that I look at it, it's kind of unbelievable to me being where I am as a crone today. Was that really me? Was that really my life? Because when I retired, that was a turning point. And when I retired, it was like a death. I went into it thinking, oh, I'm retired. This is glorious. Sorry, Corinne, but that's how it starts. And in the idealistic world, it's all beautiful and everything after retirement, but it's an incredibly tough place to be, and an incredible work is demanded of us, and especially as women, because this feeling does creep up, like, what do I do now? There goes my face, there goes my body. I'm getting up every morning in pain. Who am I? What is my purpose? Where is my value? All those questions came up. And this is when, again, my inner crone really kicked in. And on New Year's Eve in 2021, I sat down and put the message out there to whoever and whatever. What is my purpose in life? And the next morning, I opened my computer and there was something about doulas. And I had never heard of death doulas before. So that's how I got into this work. And in my present work as a doula, as we're all saying, there's, as you approach death, you experience more and more of this very thin veil between life and death. And there's more of I feel more of a shift into authentic presence, this being fully aware, being able to listen and be receptive and giving what is needed or abiding in love. And even though I don't feel like my work is finished by any means, sometimes when I think about the crone as a wise woman, I kind of laugh at myself, like, who are you kidding? Like, you have so much freaking work to do. But when I'm in those situations, whether it's singing at bedside or whether it's walking with someone as they're dying, there's just this overwhelming sense of knowing. And even though I called Jeannie at the last minute saying, oh my God, should I go? I know she's dying tonight. What should I do? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was locked out of the house and, I missed her death. But the next morning I had slept 5 hours and it turned out that I had done the right thing anyway, because they needed me to create a ceremony on the spot. As John the son and Marcel John the brother and Marcel the son were coming from New York and all over the place, and everything fell into place the way it needed to be. So yeah, I guess that's about it. That's my experience.
Okay, so thank you all for sharing your crone stories. This next part of the meeting, I'm going to invite, questions from the audience as well, and also just have an open kind of forum discussion as we're talking about the crone archetype within the context of greater mainstream society, and also the greater death work landscape and within the near future. One of the main points in this chapter of the meeting is how did we get here from the juxtaposition of the crone archetype in Western society versus in other cultures, like in indigenous cultures, right? In very matriarchal type, there's an answer, right? In lots of matriarchal societies, I think there is very much a difference in the way that elder women and wisdom is received and valued by the cultures in the community. So I would like folks to just chime in on that kind of aspect, the juxtaposition of the crone archetype, and then also these historical socioculture narrative and the impact upon our perceptions of ourselves and growing older. So anybody can jump in.
I'll jump while people are thinking. I just want to say that India, South India, Kerala, where I spent time, is not by any stretch matriarchal. There's a matrilineal caste within that part of India, and there's also goddess tradition. So this may have some impact. But the women in particular are the ones who are keepers of tradition. So as they get older, and also the elderly are more than here anyway, revered. So it's older women in particular. So I just want to say what happened just as an example. I was there with 2 students. We went twice actually. And in many situations, as we're leaving, the women would say, would you like a blessing? And we all go, yes, please. And so we'd huddle and they had the power to bless us. And I have never had that happen in all my time going back and forth to India with younger people. And I've never had it. No men have ever done that to me, and nowhere outside of India has that happened. So that's a real difference spiritually, and I think in terms of elder women in India. So there's that.
I think that's important, like really important, the way that our culture dismisses women, girls, from the moment they're born, and that there's a purpose behind that dismissal in control of the reproductive facility of women, right? So we're the producers of the workforce. and that in this capitalistic culture, and to control the means of production. In that sense, uh, older women are invisible in this culture because we have no value to it, because we're not producing it. And it's like, okay, so maybe some offhand comment of like, well, we're not going to provide childcare, so maybe the grandparents should do it, that kind of thing. By grandparents, they mean grandmother. Um, but other than that, and no, like even second thought about how there might not even be a grandmother. So, and I think that's a huge difference between a patriarchal culture and matrilineal culture. And I said this already, and I don't think I can say it enough. There aren't matriarchal cultures because older women don't want power like that. It's not something they lust after. Right? It's in matrilineal societies, naturally women are respected, which seems, kind of like, I don't know, like we can't even imagine it here, respecting women. When we talk about respecting women, people go, yes, 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 respect women. But it's like they don't understand that if you're going to respect women, every single thing would have to change. Like not just, oh, nodding respect to women, but systemically, everything would have to change. And that we have no appetite for yet. But I think we're starting to see that the patriarchal culture is built on violence, that it's power through violence, and that it's it's the smallest little microaggression of shaming and humiliation is still violence. So the way everybody is policed all the time is through violence. But in a matrilineal culture, it's through wisdom.
Mm.
It's not that they don't have violence, but the final word, the veto power, the thing that matters, right, in the end, is wisdom. I saw this image once of the way Navajo people organized their culture. And it was a circle. The children and elderly were in the middle of the circle, and the women surrounded that circle facing in, and the men surrounded that circle facing out. That's the image that the Navajo culture carries of what's important. And so I think and I'm often calling for a matrifocal society, because if you take care of mothers and women, you actually take care of everybody, because everybody is a mother's child. Whether you go on to have children of your own or not, you still started life as a mother's child, right? So if we build systems that support that, um, the elderly and children, the most vulnerable of our society, then everybody automatically benefits. And that's what a matrilineal society does. That's different. And patriarchal, it's right in the word, it's rule over. Well, how do they rule over us? Violence everywhere you turn. So, and the violence is coming from us. We're trained in it from a very early age. And, it comes from our military and our police and all that other stuff too. But that's an outpicturing of where the violence actually lives, which is
Well,
inside us.
right. And I just wanted to expand on that, especially about clarifying the point between matriarchal, matrilineal, because you're right. I think in matrilineal society, there isn't an interest in power over. It's about
Right.
sharing. It's a shared responsibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a shared care that we have, not only for ourselves, but also at it's the recognition that we are moving at the pace of our slowest member, right? So there's no person that is left behind because that is always what is leading decisions is care for others who are unable to lead. So thank you for sharing that.
Right.
Um,
I just want to add on to that. I know it's too much talking, but I just want to add on to that, that you can tell the sickness of our culture because it runs on being proud of the fact that it doesn't have compassion.
mhm. Beverly had a question that she brought up in the chat. Beverly, do you want to read the question or would you like to come off mic? Or I can read it. Okay. Beverly says, in some traditions, particularly those that describe the feminine life cycle as maiden, mother, crone, the crone represents the final stage of life, while the matriarch is the leadership role that may emerge during or before that stage. Do you find that more often in other cultures and societies as well? Anyone can take a stab.
I'll just quickly say, in Kerala, where I was, there's different castes with different structures, and one of them, the Nair caste, is the matrilineal one. And it's really interesting because the women are in charge because they're the ones who are keeping the line. And the Nair caste were warriors, actually. And so the men would go off and fight and die, and the women would hold down the fort. So they were in charge. I mean, it's just by virtue of the fact that they were the ones at home and surviving and raising kids. And it was interesting because the women could also, they were more sexually free because it didn't really matter. And that's kind of, I mean, there's so many layers to this, but yeah, I think there's a matriarch definitely in situations like that because they're home, they're alive for sure.
I think also in families, there often a mother is a hub, and that mother becomes a networking. You might not talk to siblings or cousins or aunts and uncles, but if you talk to your mother, she's a hub and she knows what's going on. And then there's grandchildren, and then that hub becomes more expanded. And so I think the matriarch we can think of that in a larger social cultural way, but I think families that have a woman who is capable of, some families don't have a mother figure even present at all, literally, or for other reasons, is incapacitated. But I think that it's often a mother who plays that matriarch, that hub. And something that's very fascinating is what happens, since this is also centering around, the closeness to the edge. What happens when the matriarch passes? Who steps into that position? How does a networking and a togetherness stay, get woven in different ways, or does it come apart? So I think the matriarch in families is very important and can kind of set tones.
Yeah. I think in a lot of matrilineal cultures, the women hold a lot of power, um, and they're considered powerful, like spiritually powerful. The blessing that Corinne was talking about, it's like when people turn their hands toward you with that kind of intention, you can almost feel it hit you. And that kind of power is held and respected. But also, women had the power of the purse. They, controlled the resources, especially food, um, money, and they had veto power about decisions of war specifically, but every decision. If the older women weren't on board, it wasn't going to fly. It just would not fly, whatever you wanted to do. Um, and that's a real power. Like, it's not like they're getting into the nitty gritty of everyday life, but if they disapprove of some plan that you have, that plan is not going to work.
Yeah, I was going to say that also, just spinning off of what Rebecca was saying about um, in the family, very often the mother, even though lots of men now cook, obviously, and, not to be sexist or anything, but the mother is usually providing the food and, symbolically, obviously, from a nursing perspective, from the very beginning of life, it's what she's designed to do with her body, but whether or not she does that, the very often she's so close to the food of the family and the community, and provides that as a resource, but also just in terms of cooking and providing and the meal situation. And it's like she's at the center of that and providing that sense of community through food. It was, and that's very true, and especially in Italian families where I grew up, it's like really big. Yeah.
Thank you all so much for your responses to that question. I wanted to bring something up, especially about what you all think about the crone archetype and transcending archetypes that are rooted in a biological imperative, right?
Mm.
As I feel like this is a very crone-like question to ask, right? That is outside of convention. Um, but how do we move beyond our function as women, as our bodies, as producers? Right? And to creating archetypes that are more inclusive, that are reaching more toward wholeness, inclusivity, and embodiment beyond what we currently experience and know, especially in a time of patriarchal collapse, right? I think old systems are failing, and I think something new might be asking to be born. So
Mm.
what do you all conceptualize? Is there archetype beyond um, what we currently see with the maiden mother crone? Um, yeah.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Um, and I think that there's a trap inside the paradigm of trying to transcend and embody at the same time. And that I, since I came up through spiritual traditions, right? So different spiritual traditions, different spiritual teachers and practices. Every time I hear the word transcendence, something in me just kind of goes, wait and listen, because um, I think so many religious disciplines are about trying to get out of the body. And most of them are pretty patriarchal. Like, even if you take most of Buddhism, it's trying to get out of here, And there's a very deep, beautiful Buddhist man I sit next to all the time, and he'll joke and laugh and say, my whole life, I've been trying to get out of my body. And it's like, and I always just want to go, and how's that gone for you? So I I think that I love when people move in the direction that's countercultural, right? I love that and embrace that. And if the voice is fierce and harsh, I'm down with it. I'm fine with it. I don't have any trouble with it. But I do have trouble with transcendence, because I think inside this mystery, the thing that I've come to understand the most is that we have to somehow find the willingness to be here, to be in the body we were born into, in the shape that it's in the thing that it came here to express. And that 9 times out of 10, the thing about myself that I've rejected is the very answer that I've been refusing to see. They're not different in any way. And I think in the willingness to ask the question is the answer, right? So, do human beings create new archetypes? I like that question. I like to sit with that question. Are archetypes, like, the birds who build these elaborate nests and have these elaborate mating rituals, are our archetypes as solid as theirs? Because we're all animals. So, or do we, or can we create new archetypes? I love that question. I think we can, but I would like to sit with that question for myself, to just ask the question. But I'm very suspicious of transcendence.
Thank you, Susan. I love that. And agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't know about another archetype, but I do feel that in this process of transforming these systems that are crumbling, as you highlighted,
Mm.
Phoenix, that it requires, this isn't any kind of a new phrase, but wisdom keepers. And I feel that wisdom keepers of any age, but I do feel that the older we are, the more perspective we have on life and things. And I think it's essential for these wisdom keepers to have a strength and to be able to be that force that can hold steady when things are really blurred and falling apart around us. And along with that steadiness, there it's really partnered with grace and that capacity to have compassion in seeing the assets of all of the parts. Because I think a lot of times what's happened is the assets, and we're talking about women here, or people that are vulnerable in society, assets have been overlooked, minimized, repressed, and having people who can be wisdom keepers, hold steady, have strength in the face of all of these things, and recognize the assets of the whole. It helps to support us into a new place that can have a stability that we haven't seen, a stability that is guided by those things that we've talked about and highlighted in many ways, where the whole of society is supported when there aren't any members that are rejected and placed on the fringe in some way.
Anyone else have any thoughts or contributions? No? Okay. Gonna field this, as like open forum questions. Anyone might want to have specifically for panel members at this time. I'm curious to know like what you all, I'm in my 40s, and so um the crone, I'm starting, to see this, and also I'm thinking about just the crone like name. I remember Karen wasn't sure how old I was and was like, "You're already a crone." And immediately there was this recoil that I felt within me, like, "No, I'm not." I have so much to do. Like that was immediately like, and I'm like, but that's not entirely how I feel, but it was so visceral, this effect, even though there's much admiration and respect for this role. Um, I still saw this resistance within myself to see myself beyond that role. And so, even doing exercises and meditations where I'm meeting my wise one, it feels so far off, and there still feels like there's difficulty grasping her as somebody who's already inherent to me. So, do you all have any advice for folks who are rising into their cronehood? Like, I don't know, like what to expect, like just some wisdom sharing for I think tempering, or I don't even mean tempering, because I think that discomfort is important for me to experience. Like you said, Susan, I think that that's an important part of this process. But I'm just curious as to what you all have to say in response.
I'll just pipe up. So, as I mentioned at the start of what I had to say, what to me is the most impactful part of what creates this wisdom is the fact that you're on the edge of, you're looking at death closely.
Mhm.
And then there's all these patterns that come out of that I find across cultures. I just want to, that life lesson thing where people talk about letting go and then trusting in this goodness, letting go of judgment, etc., and then not giving in to despair. And Susan, you made a really good point that to get there, you have to go through This is the crone thing, right? We all
Mhm.
have edges, all of us, and in our lives. It doesn't have to be death. It can be. That's a powerful one. There's no way around that. So you can't argue with it. But I feel like that's when the beauty happens, is that when we are cut up against, brought up because against our edge. And this, to just an analogy, because it makes sense to me, is bodhicitta.
Mhm.
The idea of bodhicitta, which is our true selves, and this is the trust and the goodness. The true self is boundless wisdom and boundless compassion, and we find it. And this is what's her name? Oh, the Buddhist writer.
You looking for Pema children?
Yes, I am.
I knew it.
She talks. Thank you very much. She talks about bodhicitta, which we don't see. We don't see that core beauty and truth within ourselves until the rug has been pulled out, or we're free falling and there's nowhere to land. That's when we see it. And I think
Yeah,
that is kind of that edge is what's informing, that edge of life is what's informing the crone. But I think that edge of life is something we hit upon all the time, and that's where you can look for it. And so, yeah, it's not getting rid of despair, it's hitting it and going through it and finding the other side, because you can, and it's hard.
I feel like the difference is between um, falling into despair and welcoming it. And I think there's a huge difference there. And I also think that if you are a flower in full bloom, you should be a flower in full bloom. And you should just love being that flower. And that you don't have to worry about the crone or about where the boundary is or how you're going to be when you hit it or how it's going to happen. I don't even think you need to think about it. You could just be where you are as a flower in full bloom. And you can know that all flowers wither unless they're cut off too early to end up in some kind of vase. They wither and they die and they fall. And they don't have to think about it. They don't have to make it happen. They don't have to do anything except be gorgeous in full bloom. And, maybe that's your job right now to do that. The crone will reach back and lead you. She's already there. She's already in there. She's talking to you in your meditations. She's in your dreams. She's whispering to you through other people. It's all, and if that shock is like, oh, not yet, well, I think that's probably just true. Oh, not yet.
I'll jump in on that, Susan. I kind of feel the same way a little bit, like there's this fluidity to it a little bit. And so then it's coming in bits and pieces. Like I think it was Rebecca that said, like something happened at 50. And by the way, or Alexis, happy birthday. And I kind of felt that too. And then again, at the stop of my period, but there really was something that happened around my 50th birthday internally for me that sort of I love that what you said about when you're in full bloom, enjoy the bloom because I think there was something that kind of happened to me at 50 that realized that okay, I maybe have like peaked now and the bloom is, starting to fade a little bit. But also with that came this really calm acceptance that now I feel really comfortable and I'm at a point in my life where I can say, no, thank you. I don't want to participate. Or, when people were always asking, or and still are, right, asking you to give and do, but really, really being okay with picking and choosing what I was going to put my time in and when I was going to step back. And I think that as time goes on, there's other little tidbits like that that sort of jump in and just kind of come to you almost in a moment, at times, or but not in a hard moment, just a smooth, you know, um, place where it just kind of glides you. And then now I'm looking, you know, very soon at my 69th birthday, which is so, there's this little thing in my head going, okay, maybe not allowed to say 60-ish too much longer. I'm kind of going into this new era now, but it's okay because for me, my 40s were surprisingly to me so much better than my 30s. And then same with my 50s and same with my 60s. And so I'm now not as nervous when I look back at my 29th birthday and thinking, oh my God, this is the last year of my 20s. And, I'll be 30 and whatever. But that this it's like you say, the sort of the grace and of being a little bit wiser and being and being having people kind of come to you now as sort of a mentor or a wise person to ask questions of or something. It's just it feels very natural and good in that role. And then I look at my mother who's 90 now, and she over the decades has really embraced that too. And even now it seems like in her now ninth decade, she's almost sort of urgently wanting to impart wisdom on people about, especially with the way politics are going now and stuff. And then look, you still have to fight. You can't let this happen. This is, what is the world coming to, kind of thing. I remember when, sort of. And so I think that, yeah, I love that full bloom analogy. And then, in the next decade or so, you'll kind of see the bloom going, oh, maybe it's getting a little brown around the edges or something. But, and, so I'm embracing the crone, kind of. I like her. Okay.
Yeah, my advice, have a crown ceremony when you turn 50, have a crown ceremony when you turn 60, have a crown ceremony when you turn 70, and so on
Ah,
and so on.
Love that.
Yeah,
I
that's been sort of my go-to, making yourself aware and bringing into awareness where you're at and celebrating it and creating ceremony around it, because it becomes more and more difficult for me personally. This all sounds really beautiful. And for the part that's despair, for me, it gets worse like each year after 70. I hate to say it, but it just becomes more and more challenging physically,
mm,
mentally, spiritually. It's just you're getting hit really, really hard. You're getting limited and everything gets smaller and you can't do this and you can't do that. And so just to celebrate that you are where you are and things are as they should be. And like Susan and everybody's saying, just let go and relax into it instead of fighting against it. It's a full-time job. It becomes a full-time job just getting older, especially as women and our bodies and the way they work. So just hang in there and just keep doing it and celebrate it.
I had to embrace grief and depression and struggle uh, to get to joy. And I had to let go of fear. I was graced with a terrific therapist who basically taught me that there's two polarities, love and fear. And the minute you let fear go, all that's left is love. And that's challenging. Um, it's really challenging. I have never been happier than I am at 65. I have finally bloomed. I
Mm.
have been holding that bloom back. I have been afraid to open. And what happened for me in the process, and it was therapy, and it was also embracing my spirituality in 12-step work. That's where I found my answers, and that's where I learned to surrender to the and let go of the illusion that I was in control of anything.
Mhm.
And letting go of control was the thing that set me free. And who I got to meet as older me was my little girl, and let her out to play. And that has been astounding. I highly recommend old age. When I was a little kid, I loved old people. My most important person was my grandmother, who was not really what I would call a happy person. She had a struggle-filled life, but she also knew how to love. And old people are smart. And I love calling myself an old person now. And I have embraced the waddle. The waddle is something I love my waddle. I was sure I was going to hate it. I don't hate it at all. I love it. It's tender. It's beautiful. And there's a vulnerability to it that I enjoy. So I'm celebrating. And yes, I am seeing the changes in my body as far as the aging stuff goes, but like bring it, bring it, because it gives me compassion for other people and it gives me compassion for myself. And I feel so blessed to have met Susan Kacvinsky, because Susan is not only somebody I would regard as a best friend, she's also a spiritual teacher, even though she doesn't want me to feel that way. I don't think she doesn't want that mantle, but she can't
Oh, go
help it.
ahead.
You can't help it. You just can't. Everything that comes out of your mouth is golden. And it's because you know grief and you aren't afraid of being in that place. So I want to thank you for that, because I learned more about myself talking to you than any other person I've ever learned from. I'll shut up now. Um,
That's really
Thank you.
beautiful, Nan.
Well,
Celebrating Susan with you. I'm curious because at some point a long time ago in our conversation, Alexis, you took off your mute, and I just was curious what you were going to say, if you can remember.
Thank you, Rebecca. First, I just want to thank everyone for being here and for putting this call together. It is really insightful and illuminating. And everyone who has shared, all the shares have deeply resonated with where I'm at and kind of accepting myself where I am, and it just really is a treasure to be here. I was really curious. I wanted to ask Corinne about the blessings. What were the blessings like? And I'm so into blessings and prayers, and I've started a new morning ritual where I'm doing a benediction, and I'm just getting carried away with blessings. So that just really, I got really curious about that when you mentioned it.
Um, it's pretty basic. This is Hindu women, Christian women, because Kerala's got from the spice trade a lot of old ancient Christian traditions, and also upper caste and Dalits, untouchable. So it's all these women. And it was really a gathering outside the threshold of the house, sometimes in the house if they were in an apartment. And they would either individually, always with touch on our heads. And if it were the group of us, my two students and me, they would put their hands like, just raised above our heads. So it's about that, the hands. I think Susan was saying you can feel it. Just praying for our going out into the world, because it was a parting blessing that we might be surrounded by, protection, surrounded by love, that we will bring good into the world. I mean, it's all the things that you can imagine. It's nothing different than I think what we would imagine a blessing would be. And I want to just say, in terms of Crone stuff and Phoenix's question, I think you're all ready for being all of you who are younger are ready because you've hit up against things. I was talking about that. I mean, this is what women remember is the hard stuff that has beauty that blooms from it. I mean, life is so juicy and complicated. But I just want to say, the younger folks who are doing this kind of work are old souls. You're there already. I mean, the blooming is, yeah, there's a bloom within that beautiful old soul that you are. It's so unusual and it's really precious. So I just want to add that.
It's really on my heart to add this piece that Karen brought up about the constraints of age and the difficulty of things in your body happening. And I just know that as a poet, as a writer, that the best pieces come out of constraint. That when you put constraints on yourself or you put a structure on yourself, that's when the unexpected thing happens. And my experience so far, although I've been very healthy and haven't experienced a lot of it myself yet, my husband has, and I'm watching him and learning from him. As your physical life gets smaller and you prepare to die, your spiritual life gets bigger and the mystery gets bigger. And I think it's all in preparation of making that transition. You have to let go of control. I mean, you just don't have it. And if you've given birth, you know that whatever modesty you had going into that situation was thrown out the window. It was the first thing to go. Everybody's going to be looking at all your parts. Everybody's going to be putting their fingers everywhere, and that's just the way it is. And if you're going to be precious about it, you're just not going to make it. And I think getting old is like that, in that you're just going to lose control of the body. And what happens in that is you stop thinking that you are a body. You start thinking of yourself as something more than that or bigger than that. And I think it goes different for everyone. But I think everyone who dies a natural death will experience it. And that's the part about proximity to death that I'm talking about. It's that willingness to suffer those indignities, those slings and arrows, and to be who you are still in the moment and let the, I know this word, I'm going to make it up right now, let the beginning happen, the getting bigger, let that happen. And I think that is a spiritual discipline as you're aging. And I think that is painful and beautiful and messy and probably filled with fluids and all kinds of terrible things about being a body, right? But I look forward to that with trepidation, and I welcome it too, as like contractions of being born into
Yeah.
the next thing.
That's often what we say in the death doula world, that
Right.
dying is being born in reverse. And I know for me, I've always seen that interconnectedness. And I'm seeing it so much again. I'm feeling like I'm in the study right now, like a living experience of what you experienced in Kerala, with my 94-year-old grandmother, who's like there. And one of the mantras that's just coming to my mind right now that I've been reminded about in what you were just saying, Susan, was stay out of the mysteries business because it ain't your business. And like releasing like the control of everything. That's one of the things that death has taught me, is that I really am powerless to it all. But also, I think, what was the phrase that you said, Corinne, earlier um, about the incomprehension?
Oh, the higher incomprehension.
Higher incomprehension. I
Yes,
think that
love that.
directly applies to the mystery.
Yeah.
So I'm just really appreciative of that and all this wisdom. So I know it's at 4:30 right now, but before we go, are there any last words? I would like everyone to go around, say one thing or one phrase that they gained from this session, and then we can sign off and do with the rest of our day what we will.
Okay, I'll start if I can.
Yes, Trish, we missed you and the voice.
Oh no, I'm just like, oh, guys. Okay, so let me take one breath. Um, your guys' description of the blessing, is how I have experienced this whole conversation with your, loving hands, energies, wisdoms, um, yeah, surrounding me. And, here at age 39, um, just in such gratitude and deep awareness of like what a blessing it is to have had this conversation from you all. Like life changing. And so like self-empowering. For you guys to have like been so vulnerable to share. Karen, when you were mentioning about I can't even quote you, but it was like the idea of the awareness that your Crone version had been there in the past and like been guiding you. And I've like recently done so much like um focus on understanding, learning, connecting with myself. And then through that, there's been a lot of like inner child, inner teenager, that kind of stuff. And kind of Phoenix, how you said, like, whenever I like would think of Crone, there's this like, you kind of thing. But I recently had the experience of, without a doubt, knowing my today version had been with my teenage version and had given me exactly what I needed at that moment. And so as you described that with the Crone relationship, I could instantly understand and feel and just be like, oh, yeah, it's like I've got me. I had me then and I have me now and I will have me that, later. And so like the continuity of me. Um yeah, I don't know. It's like this is a conversation that I'll save and treasure and share and refer back to. And yeah, like so grateful that y'all poured that in and blessed me with that today. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah.
Who wants to go next?
I'll be short and sweet.
I'll,
I'm just going to say, as to you, Alexis, 50 is freedom. That's how it was for me. And I think that's how it's going to be for you.
And fabulous too.
And fabulous.
and
Yes.
fun
Yes.
and female
Oh,
and freeing
50,
yay.
50 is so
and
fabulous.
phenomenal. I spell it with an F.
With a P.
No, with an F. I respelled it. Susan can make up words. I'm gonna change
That's
the
right. I give
That's
us
spelling.
right,
all
Audacity.
permission. That's right. To break all the rules of grammar
That's
that you
right.
want whenever you want to. I'm an English
English
teacher and I have
teacher.
the power to give you all that permission, and I do that
Yes. You're
right
using your
now.
sacred powers for
That's
good
right.
here.
Boom, boom, boom.
Oh, and
Dangerous.
fearless.
Yes.
Yes, that F2.
Yeah. Love that.
So I'll just say thank you to all of
Yeah.
you for opening this whole world of what the crone means, something I've not thought about.
Hmm.
As an ethnographer, I don't think about, impose frameworks. I try to learn from them, but it's so fascinating on a
Yeah.
psychological level. And I think in terms of patterns, when you get older, I just see so many connections. And I just
Mhm.
love all of your hearts, all of you,
Mm.
old soul, young people, older crone, like very wise women, all of you wise, all of you. So I just really appreciate being drawn in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I want to hear from Karen, Nan, Rebecca.
Yeah,
I'll say
you know,
something.
I'll
Oh,
say
go
thank
ahead,
you.
Karen.
I
Sorry.
just want to say thank you, especially to Phoenix. Phoenix and I have been talking about this subject and
Mm.
developing this whole idea, but she really brought it together. And just blessings to you, Phoenix.
Thank you. Mm. And also, I'm sorry, I'm gonna again love fest too, also to Karen in helping to be the touch points with all of these incredible, awe-inspiring women here who've been our panelists. Thank you so much for connecting, Rebecca. I know, like, I don't remember like meeting and being in relationship with you at the Threshold Choir when I was there like more frequently, but Karen has like got me up to speed. I'm loving your work and I'm just so appreciative that you were so enthusiastic to join us, like, kind of and talk about this. Like, way to go, intimate much, like putting you on Front Street. So again, just thank you all for just being so transparent and so just like excited and willing to share about your experience and your wisdom. So thank you.
I just am echoing the gratitude. I absolutely love conversations like this because I love having conversations with women. That's why I started Awakening Women's Wisdom, because offering an opportunity for women to have a voice, to share what they know, what they've learned, what they know about love, it is always a rich blessing. And so I was thrilled to be asked and invited to be a part of this conversation. And I've learned many, many things like you, Trish. I feel very blessed by today, touched by your hearts, inspired by the things that you've shared, and just adore the smiles that I see, because it's a reflection of all of your hearts. So thank you for sharing this little space of July 5th with me too.
Mm.
It's on you, Nan.
What? Oh,
You.
um, is it inappropriate to do a plug for something I do?
No, do
Okay,
it.
so I started an online storytelling project called Wham Bam Thank You Slam. And it is a feminist storytelling group
Ooh.
that meets once a month uh, and tells stories based on a theme. And I choose the themes most of the time. And Susan's piece on Thursday, and Susan has performed several times at the Slam. Susan's piece on Thursday got me to change the topic for one of our meetups, and it's now called Hags and Crones. And we're going to be doing that in February of 2027. So if anybody's interested in listening to some amazing stories by amazing women, we do it every month, and it's a Substack as well. So
I dropped it in
come.
the chat, so just
Thank you. Oh,
that.
thanks. Thank you. That was so nice.
Of
Thanks so
course,
much.
of
And
course.
if you let fear go,
Hmm.
the shit show that's happening in this country right now cannot touch you.
That's
It
right.
can't touch you. I'm not
Mhm.
afraid of them. They want us to be afraid.
That's right.
Don't let them do that. That's
And
Yeah.
it.
if it touches
Thanks.
you, that's your path.
That's true. That's a good point. Thank you.
It's unlikely though.
But
Yeah.
it's also that's I think really crone wisdom. I'm gonna leave us with this last quote again by the brilliant Marion Woodman. I don't know what publication it comes from, but it says the crone holds an unspeakable wisdom in the very cells of her body. The beauty and the horror of all life are held together in love. Being with her, we begin to see everything from two sides, the side that is totally in life and the side that is already dwelling in disembodied soul. The crone helps us to hold the paradox, which
Mm.
profound. So,
Beautiful. Thanks,
all right,
Phoenix.
everyone. Thank you all. I feel so, I'm floating on air. I know we're like 11 minutes over, but I hope the rest of your Sunday is blessed and rich and spend some good time with that crone of yours.
Mm.
Love these community meetings. Bye,
This was
girls. So
great.
good to see everybody.
Bye,
Love
Be
this
well.
everyone.
community.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great
beautiful.
community.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.